Okay, guys, we are starting developmental psychology. This is our first video for developmental. So we're going to talk a little bit about what actually developmental psychology is, and then we're going to talk about development as a child, physical development of children. So let's get going. Many psychologists are concerned with the physical, mental, and social changes that take place during the human lifespan, and this field is known as developmental psychology. Some developmental psychologists view human development as a progression through a series of distinct stages, and others see it as a gradual, continuous process over a person's lifespan. So, by examining how and why people change over time, developmental psychologists can make generalizations about how humans change physically, cognitively, socially, and morally. And again, developmental psychology is the field which psychologists study how people grow and change throughout life. And we use really two methods to do this. The longitudinal method I'm sorry, I got distracted by something. The longitudinal method is in which researchers select a particular group of participants and they observe this same group for their entire life. They retest them, they reobserve them throughout their life, and this can often take decades. However, the cross-sectional method is when researchers select a sample and they compare the participants to one another. They're different ages, they're different groups, and they are being compared to one another. We're concerned with two general issues here: ways in which heredity and environmental influences contribute to human development, and whether development occurs gradually or in stages. Do we go through these set stages, or do we just kind of flow through life in a gradual way? And what influences the development of a human being? Is it nature, or are people born with certain biological predispositions to become who they are, or is it nurture? Are people shaped by their environment to become who they are? And this debate between people who support nature and those who back nurture is a controversial one, and we've talked about it in our neurobiology unit as well. Early developmental psychologists studied mostly the nature side of the debate. This guy, Arnold Gesell, was a scholar, and he stated that children develop motor skills like walking and throwing in a series of fixed stages. And he said that all of these skills were determined by nature, not nurture. But later, John B. Watson came along, and he said that children learn many behaviors from the surrounding environment. And then you had Piaget, who came along and said that he was one of the first ones to suggest that nature and nurture interact together and that they are inseparable. The nature of one's inherited genetic makeup and the nurture of one's parents and other family members, teachers, friends, and social institutions combine to form an individual's unique personality. And today, most psychologists accept Piaget's point of view. Piaget did say that people grow in stages, though, and we're going to learn about Piaget's stages. So again, stage development says that development occurs in a predetermined sequence of steps. You can't jump or skip steps, and everyone takes these steps in the same order. Continuous development theorists say that continuity holds stages of development that do not exist, and that they believe that children pick up knowledge constantly through observation and learning. So let's talk about some physical development. We're going to come back to stage and continuity later, but it's a good intro to this. So let's talk about physical development. An individual human being's physical development starts in the prenatal stage. After conception, during the germinal stage, the zygote, or the fertilized egg, divides into more cells, thus forming the embryo. And soon the embryo develops a nervous system, a heart, and other organs. And after the 7th week, the embryo has actually become a fetus. By the end of the 6th month, the fetus can kick, make a fist, swallow, and frown, and all organ systems are fully functional by the 7th month. Newborns can see, but at first their vision is very blurry. But by 4 months, they can group objects according to shape, and by 7 months, they can perceive depth. and we're going to talk about that. So infancy is the period from birth to 2 years old, and these are dramatic gains. Childhood is the period from 2 years old to adolescence, and children gain an average of 2 to 3 inches and 4 to 6 pounds each year until they start adolescence or puberty. And this is an example of some of the things that we are born with, a good example of nature at work here, the Babinski reflex. I have a video that I'll show you of my son doing this. And this means that they raise their big toes and fan out all of their toes when somebody strokes the sole of their foot, and then they curl back in. Infants are born with all sorts of reflexes. It's an involuntary reaction or response like swallowing. They're inborn, they're not learned, they occur automatically. And these reflexes that infants have include grasping. If you've ever put your finger in an infant's fist, they're going to hold on to you. They'll root, as in if you put anything near their face or near their mouth, they root like they're rooting for a nipple. They have a sucking reflex. Anything that's put in their mouth, they're going to suck on it. They also have a swallowing reflex. The Moro reflex, I'll show you an example of it, but the Moro reflex is a reflex in which an infant, if you lay an infant on its back, often it'll throw its arms and legs out like it's falling. And that's an evolutionary reflex to help them survive. And the Babinski reflex is as well, and we'll talk about those. And as children develop, they have many reflexes that will disappear, but some remain and some come under voluntary control. So this is a good chart showing motor development. Like I said, newborns can see at first, but their vision is blurry, and by 4 months they can group objects according to shape. By 7 months they can perceive depth. Hearing also takes some time to develop fully. Infants' muscles and brains develop. They develop very quickly, and we can't say exactly when these stages will start, but we know once they start, they follow a certain pattern, okay? Meaning that, we can't say that definitely by 4 months your baby is going to be rolling over. However, once they do start rolling over, whether it's at 3 months or 6 months, they're going to follow a certain pattern of development. So they're going to roll from stomach to side, and then they'll go from stomach to back, and then they'll go from back to stomach, and that's the hardest one. And then they can sit up on their own and after that they'll go to crawling, and then they can go to kneeling, and then they can go to just plain standing before they jump to walking. And when we talk about motor development, we're talking about the development of purposeful movement. That is motor development. Gross motor development refers to baby's progress in coordinating major muscle groups like walking. That's a gross motor development. However, fine motor development refers to the coordination of our hands, face, and other small muscles. And when we talk about fine motor development, you're talking about the ability to pick up a Cheerio with 2 fingers. And the point at which infants reach these milestones is different from infant and culture to culture. Again, perceptual development is like I was saying, when we talk about perception, like what we can see and hear, infants really tend to prefer new and interesting stimuli. They're influenced by their age, definitely, and their depth perception seems to be influenced by experience as well. So this is a chart showing you how long infants will fixate on something that is shown to them, and you can see right here they will fixate on a face, on what is recognizably a human looking face for a very long time, whereas these other things they won't. So it automatically there is a nature component here. Infants are pre-wired to be able to recognize a human face, and also infants can, from an evolutionary perspective, this helped them survive. They can perceive depth at a pretty young age, meaning that this is how they tested it. They refused to crawl across this visual cliff, okay? It looks like to them that the table just drops off, but there's really a piece of glass right here so they can crawl to their mother who's on the other side. But infants refuse to do it because all they see is the cliff and they know they're going to fall. And this is helpful for development. So that is the physical characteristics of childhood development, and we'll start video 2 next time. Thanks, guys.